Northwestern Wildcats come off back-to-back top three finishes in the Big Ten, 12-8 in Big Ten play in both years, and back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances for the first time in school history, and they're picked to finish 16th in the Big Ten heading into this season. What's up with that? We're going to dive into all that and more in this video. College basketball season is almost here, so it's time to dive into some previews. Let's look at Northwestern. They return the highest percentage of minutes of anyone in the Big Ten, and as I mentioned before, are still getting no love. Most of that is due to the loss of Boo Buie and Ryan Langbort, two huge scoring pieces from last year's team. Blake Preston is also gone, so they lose three of the returners or three of the rotation players, but still return the highest percentage of minutes of anyone in the Big Ten, and of course are ranked 16th. But they've outperformed the preseason media poll just about every year since Chris Collins has been there. They were ranked preseason 8th last year, finished third, tied for third, and then preseason 12th 2 years ago, finished second. So not anything that I would be concerned about looking at this poll. I would bet everything that they finish above 6 teams again. Last year, they finished 7th in the country in three-point percentage and 7th in the country in lowest turnover percentage. So those were some of the keys, and those are two things that Boo Buie and Ryan Langbort brought to the team. However, a lot of the returners should be able to pick up some of the slack that not everyone's going to be able to, or it's going to be replacing Boo Buie with a couple of guys, not necessarily one guy can obviously replace the leading scorer in Northwestern history. First guy I would expect to step up and take over some of that scoring load is preseason all-conference selection Brooks Barnhizer. Barnhizer was awesome last year and is really improved from his 3 years at Northwestern so far. Take a look at his three-point percentage by season, jumps from 18.2 to 31 and then to 34.8. So great numbers, improving year by year and seeing higher usage every year as well. And if we look at his points per game, another area where we see just exponential growth, basically 1.7 points to 7.6 to 14.6 over the years. And last year he was the secondary scorer after Boo Buie. He took the last 21 games in the season, he had 10 or more points in 20 of them. He averaged almost 15 points a game. And the thing that I love about Barnhizer is one, he can go get a bucket, so it's less dependent on whether or not he's having a good shooting night. He can go find it for himself. Obviously, he's going to look to create for others a little bit more now without Buie running the point. And the other thing I love is just the consistency. You can rely on him for at least 10 points a night. I mean, his season low last year was 7, and he got 7 once and 8 a couple times when he in foul trouble or someone else was just going. So Barnhizer, absolutely most important player going into this season. Other two returners, love seeing back Ty Berry and Matthew Nicholson. Ty Berry, finally, we were waiting for the season where he's just torching it from 3, and that was last year until it ended early, February 7th, when he went down with the injury and missed the rest of the season. But Berry is one of the reasons that the Wildcats finished 7th in the country in three-point percentage. He had 10 games with 3 or more three-pointers made. So super excited that he decided to come back, along with Matthew Nicholson, who I believe is one of the most important players on this team. And he was last year. Last year when he scored 10 points or more, which happened 5 times, the Wildcats were 5-0. And that included 4 Big Ten games where they beat Maryland, Illinois, Penn State, and won at Indiana. That was one of my favorite games of the year, that win at Indiana. Nicholson with 14 points and 16 rebounds, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. He was a lot of fun to watch, and when he gets going, he gets into the game, he gets into the offense, he's getting some easy ones. It was really flowing for Northwestern. He'd have games where he was started to look for his shot off those handoffs to Buie, fake a handoff, go slam it down, get the crowd into it. Loved that. The next player that I think is an important returner, Nick Martinelli. Chris Collins said this, he's the breakout guy. He could be the secondary creator after Barnhizer. And I think he needs to take the next step. He'll shoulder some of that load with Bowie leaving. It'll be him, it'll be Barnhizer, and potentially some of the newer guys. But he's such a unique player with, left-hand hook shot as a guard, not really a three-point shooter. We'll see if he can, if that's something he adds to the game, but love that he's just a different look for opponents. And then next we got Luke Hunger, Blake Smith, Justin Mullins, and Jordan Clayton coming back. They all played minutes last year. Hunger forced into some big time minutes as a sophomore. He started two NCAA tournament games with Nicholson out, and one of the things that I think is a key for him is hitting that three. He began to shoot some threes last year, not at the highest percentage, but if he can knock down the open ones, I think he's a decent enough shooter, a good shooter, that could be huge for the Wildcats. Blake Smith, a walk-on who all of a sudden was starting in Big Ten games at Maryland last year. So, great to have him back with his experience, more of a defender. Justin Mullins, 6'5", another versatile defender that got thrown into the minutes last year, but didn't really show the offense, but love that he's 6'5", and can hopefully take another step this year. Jordan Clayton, a freshman last year, was thrown into games with some of the injuries. So hoping he'll take a step here as a sophomore. As for the newcomers, the first one that jumps off the page to me is a guy that's definitely going to get minutes from day one, Jalen Leach, a grad transfer from Fairfield. And he can definitely be a ball handler. It seems like a lot of people think he's just going to be the point guard right away, and he probably will be, but didn't necessarily play the point guard role for Fairfield. And I think just saying he's going to be the new Boo Buie replacement, not saying he's going to, have the performance of Buie or anything, but just step in for him. I think that there's going to be multiple ball handlers with Barnhizer, Leach, and Martinelli as the main guys. Barry maybe a little bit, but really he excels as a shooter. He put up 16.2 points per game, 4.1 rebounds, and 3 assists per game at Fairfield last year. He's 6'4", so he's big. He'll fit in with the Big Ten, and I think his biggest attribute to this team could be his defense. He had a big jump in his steals last year at 1.8 per game. He can really, I'm not saying he's going to be like this guy, but the ability that Chase Audiche had, maybe his first or second year with Northwestern, where he was a guy that was getting hands on balls and really igniting some offense from the defense, which was huge for Northwestern. That would be great to have him in that sort of a role. Not saying he's going to have that sort of production, but great to have him in that sort of a role. Leach shot 34% from three last year. He did struggle mightily in their conference tournament. He was 0 for 12, but he did actually was part of a Fairfield team that got all the way to the championship game before losing to St. Peter's. So he's a guy that is definitely going to be part of this rotation. Another guy that's interesting to me, Keenan Fitzmaurice, 7-footer from Stony Brook. Love having a big guy off the bench like that. I mean, last year or last 2 years have kind of been both. Once Nicholson's out, we go to a 6'8"-ish big guy with Blake Preston last year, Verhoeven the year before, Titus Verhoeven, and then last year it was Preston, and then after that it ended up being Luke Hunger a little bit. So it'd be great to have another 7-footer. I love that pickup from Stony Brook. A couple freshmen that Chris Collins has said will be a part of the rotation this year and looked really good in their foreign trip this summer. KJ Wyndham, 6'3", guard. He should. I don't know a whole lot about his game yet, but he's scored some big numbers in those overseas games. So looking for him to bring an immediate impact. And Angelo Chiaravino, the 6'5" freshman from Mount Carmel in Chicago. And the thing I like about both these guards is they're big. I mean, that was the one knock, I guess, on Boo Buie in terms of making a jump to the NBA or anything. He's, not the biggest guy. So this year, the lineup, and that should help defensively, is really big at the guard positions. They take on Butler in the Arizona tip-off, and then they'll also take on either Mississippi State or UNLV there in Tempe. Then when they return, they get into Big Ten play at Iowa, and then they're home against Illinois Friday night, December 6th. That'll be a fun one. Before they get a fun little neutral site game in Milwaukee against Georgia Tech. I'm hoping to be at that one. And then of course, they've got DePaul as always. DePaul with a new head coach as well, Chris Holtman. So plenty of familiarity with Northwestern as he had at Ohio State. And they've got Northeastern on Sunday, December 29th to wrap up the non-conference schedule before getting into Penn State and Purdue to start the second part of the Big Ten uh, schedule there on the road. And then, yeah, Big Ten hits you right, right in the face with Michigan State, Maryland at home, at Michigan, home, Indiana. The return at Illinois game there on January 26th, the Sunday at 2 p.m. And then they've got home against Rutgers, home against Wisconsin, home against USC. So three straight home games there, hoping to really string that strong schedule there, or strong string of games there before they head out west to the new Big Ten. So two or three, I guess, new Big Ten games there with the host USC at Washington and then at Oregon. Sandwiched, they get a home game with Nebraska, so that's a tough part of the schedule. 4 out of 5 away games, two of them on the West Coast, and then they're at Ohio State, at Minnesota. And though Minnesota is projected to be the worst team in the league, there's no easy road games, especially the last of 4 out of 5 on the road before they come home for Iowa, UCLA, and then finish off at Maryland. That's a tough finish going all the way to Maryland, which is, of course, one of the toughest places to play in the Big Ten. When you look at this schedule, so we look at it on KenPom, they're projected to go 17 and 13 and 9 and 11 in the Big Ten. And then their KenPom ranked preseason is 50th. That's okay, I guess, but probably not good enough to get you in to the big dance. But the great thing about the Big Ten is there's so many chances for these quad one wins. And what Northwestern has been able to do the last couple of years, steal one or two, three on the road that kind of switches that from a 9 and 12 or 9 and 11 projection to 11 and 9 or 12 and 8, and all of a sudden, boom, you're in the big dance. So I don't think it's that crazy for Northwestern to be there again. Again, if there's going to be 18 teams in the Big Ten this year, and you only get a lot of the teams once, it's going to be interesting, but there's no reason Northwestern can't be there again. I appreciate you tuning into the Northwestern basketball preview. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments if you think Northwestern will make it back to the NCAA tournament for a third consecutive season. I hope you're as excited as I am, as another season of college basketball is right around the corner.